If you're involved in any way in the Souls-like or Souls-born community, you probably have a lot more patience than I do. The older I've gotten, the less I've been interested in partaking in communities based around games, movies, etc. Not because there aren't good people, but because stuff like this keeps coming up, and it kind of becomes a bit of like a circle jerk, a measuring contest, and I would also say a credentialism thing, because there has been another controversy, and I say that in quotes, around Elden Ring, around Soulsborne games, and around the idea of difficulty. Now, first off, there has been the whole conversation people have been having for weeks now about Shadow of the Erdtree being too hard. That's not actually what I want to talk about here, but what I want to take a look at specifically today is the idea of a pause button. Now, here's the thing. This came up recently because of a creator named Alanah Pearce. Now, Alanah is actually someone that I followed off and on for a long time, not someone I always agree with, but someone who used to be with Rooster Teeth and is now involved directly in game development. You can like her, you can dislike her, but I don't think that that actually proves what she's saying right or wrong. And what she said in a clip is essentially talking about Elden Ring needing a pause button. I will actually include a tiny clip here, although keep in mind that whenever we clip anything, that's not the full context. So if you want to watch her full video, you can go do so, and I will leave the source in the description down below, because I think that's the charitable thing to do when we talk about someone's take.
Also, multiple kinds of disabilities, especially where gaming is concerned. There are long-term disabilities, there are situational disabilities, there are temporary disabilities. It counts as a disability where a video game like Elden Ring is concerned if you have a kid. You have a 2-year-old, you're trying to play Elden Ring, you can't pause. That is a situational disability that you have, where the game not having the option for you to be able to pause, for example, is a hindrance for your particular disability, a situational disability.
Now, what rubbed everyone the wrong way, I noticed, was the idea of disabilities, the idea of these terms that came up in this conversation. That's something we're going to talk about in a minute, because I do actually have a lot to weigh in on with that. But I did want to say really quick, if you enjoy this video, if you want to leave a like, subscribe, let me know what you think. That stuff helps small channels like mine grow a lot. I also did have a question of the day for you, which is genuinely what you think about this entire situation. But I do urge you to maybe listen to a couple points I have to make before you answer. Maybe you'll have a different take. I don't know. Now, something I noticed that bothered a lot of people about this take is the idea of situational or temporary disabilities. The idea that there are disabilities that are not things like actual damage to your body, or your body being born differently, or having some kind of injury that causes a disability, right? Like, I think we can all get on board with the idea that if you have one arm, that's a disability, or if you have a broken arm, that is considered a temporary disability. That's why you're able to actually get things like doctor's notes, right? I mean, if it wasn't a disability, the doctor would say, stop being a whiny baby, take that sling off, and why don't you work on your broken arm? But of course, people have the rationality and the understanding that those things do limit what you can do. I think everybody can agree with that, unless you're some kind of psychotic monster who believes in running black labs and eugenics, and that if you break your arm, you should be taken out. I think most people can agree with these points and have a little empathy for them. This entire thing came from a Microsoft design toolkit, the inclusive toolkit, a word that has become a buzzword in recent years, and I do want to say that there are parts of it that I disagree with. The idea of a situational disability to me is just silly. That said, that doesn't change what Alanah Pearce was talking about in her video. Just because I disagree with this terminology as someone who has a permanent physical disability, actually 2 of them, and also has anxiety, depression, and other issues, I don't agree with the term situational disability existing. I think it's a dumb term. I think if you're a new parent, you should have your priorities. I think if you're a distracted driver, you should have your priorities. I don't look at a distracted driver and say they should be able to play Elden Ring while driving, or they should be able to play Dragon Ball Legends while driving, or anything like that. Or that if you're a bartender in a busy bar, that you should be able to play Elden Ring. I find this design document stupid. But that doesn't fall on Alanah Pearce. What she was talking about was actual terminology in the world of video game development. Just because I am someone who has a physical permanent disability who finds this patronizing and ridiculous, and again thinks this is another example of the out-of-touch games industry, doesn't mean that's on Alanah. Now, what she was talking about was the idea of having a pause button in Elden Ring when you are playing offline, by the way, when you're playing by yourself, not when you're like in PvP or something like that. She wasn't saying, hey, hop in an Overwatch lobby, and then you should be able to pause the match for everyone else in the match to go take care of your kid. Not what she was saying. What she was saying is this is how the video game industry views this. Now, the question then becomes, do you agree with the video game industry? I personally don't. I think if you're a new parent, unfortunately, you might want to avoid certain games like Elden Ring, or like some said on Twitter, let your character die and try again later if the mother or the baby or the father or whoever needs you so that you can be a new parent. That's my personal belief as someone who believes that responsibility comes before fun. However, I don't believe asking for a pause button on its own merits, is something that these Soulsborne communities should be getting so up in arms and angry about. And before you get out your pitchfork, because I don't buy into the whole get good BS in terms of like, well, you didn't beat it using a strength build with soul level 1, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. These games were designed to be played the way you want to play them. They were designed by From Software and Miyazaki that way on purpose. From the very beginning, there was the option to summon. You can have no respect for it. I couldn't care less. That is an option, and one that's actually encouraged in these games. It's one that recently Miyazaki actually endorsed and said that they were thinking about doing full-on co-op in games in the future. There are a lot of things in these games that people use as a measuring contest to try and feel better than other people, to try and build themselves up better than other people, instead of just celebrating their own accomplishment. Now, I'm not someone who thinks it's just a game, your accomplishment doesn't matter, but I am someone who recognizes that a game is also not real life, in the sense that while these accomplishments, trying, succeeding, attempts, these things do matter, and overcoming adversity matters, I don't necessarily think something like adding a pause button would be the same as, say, adding an easy mode, or adding a one-hit kill mode, or anything like that. I've seen a lot of people trying to liken this to an aimbot in a shooter, to which I ask, what are you talking about? There actually was a From Software game that famously did have a pause button. It was the recreation of Demon's Souls 1. I guess I should just say Demon's Souls, because there is no 2. I don't even know why I specified. Maybe it's because in the back of my head I really want another Demon's Souls game, and I really want actually another Bloodborne game at some point, if it was done intentionally. But the Blue Point remake of Demon's Souls, which was originally a From Software game, featured one of the better photo modes I have ever seen. That photo mode does allow you to pause Demon's Souls. I never found that photo mode made the game easier. I suppose you could use it to check out the environment a little bit, to take pictures, things like that. But at the end of the day, it wasn't something you could do when you were connected to others online. It was only something you could use offline to actually freeze the game. When you were online, if you brought up photo mode, your character would still be moving. You would still be hit the same way that any pause button would work. And guess what? That didn't ruin the game. That didn't cause any problems. And even if we want to look at something like Elden Ring, which I was actually shocked launched without a photo mode, because it's such a beautiful, gorgeous game. I really wanted to take pictures of my character, the world, things like that more easily. And I'm actually disappointed that wasn't in the game for that reason. I was actually surprised at that, because Bluepoint, I thought, actually did something better than From Software in that way, by allowing players to enjoy and celebrate and explore the world in a new way. Now, my question is this. Did you know that there already is the ability to pause Elden Ring? On different platforms, you can bring up the help option, but even on PC, you can pause the task. You can pause the task in the task manager. Or there's other ways to do it as well on PC. My point being that this is already something you can do. The request was just for the ability to press a button to do it, not actually to be able to go into a menu and do it in two different ways, or to pause the application. So I've noticed that a lot of people didn't know that this was a thing. That's why I asked, did you know it was? Because a lot of people that I see arguing against this, I kind of feel like have a bit of a foot in their mouth, in the sense that they don't realize you already can do this to some extent. Now, some are going to say, well, then why did Alanah bring this up at all? If you can already do it, why is this a discussion at all? Now, at the end of the day, I don't agree with everything Alanah Pearce says. That's fine. I don't actually agree with everything any creator or anyone on any platform says, and not even in my own personal life. You know why? Because I'm an individual with thought, logic, reasoning, the ability to think things out for myself. And a lot of times I surround myself with people I agree with on a lot of things. That doesn't mean I agree with them on everything. First off, the fact that this design document is what she's basing it off of, you can hate this design document, you can find it ridiculous, silly, and patronizing. I do, personally. I think it's dumb, especially as someone with an actual disability that, I can be on the same chart as someone like where I have chronic pain, tremors, nerve issues, all these things, that I'm on the same chart as a bartender. To me, that is one of the most patronizing, ridiculous, silly, and almost insulting things I've ever seen from a company like Microsoft. But you know who didn't make this chart? Alanah. This is like not agreeing with one of the rules at your work, but still following it so you have a job. All she was doing was explaining the way that the video game industry sees this. If people want to change how the video game industry sees this, voice your opinion, but Alanah Pearce is not someone who can change that attitude in the video game industry. It's misdirecting your anger. It's misdirecting your frustration at someone who actually has no real pull on those attitudes. Secondly, the ability to already do this is here, so I don't really see what the problem would be of making it slightly easier to pause. You already can pause. You can already do that. So it's not like, you are already like strapped to a chair and you must complete whatever task you're doing in the game, whether it be online or not. Now, at the end of the day, if this was asking to do it online, I would totally understand the frustration around it. Like, well, why should you be able to pause my game? Or maybe if you were in PvP with someone and they paused their game and they entered passive mode, and then you let your guard down and they went back into aggressive mode and killed you. Yes, if there was a way to game that system, I absolutely agree. But I don't actually see any way in which a pause menu truly impacts the balancing or the difficulty of the game. To me, this falls very much in the same vein as the people who say things like, you summoned, you didn't really beat the game. Oh, you used an intelligence build? Well, I used soul level 1 strength build. You didn't beat the game. Oh, well, you upgraded your blessings in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC? I didn't do that at all. You didn't really beat the game. All you are asking is, hey, would this game benefit from this option? And there are options I don't think it would benefit from. But I don't see this kind of anger over things like a hard of hearing mode or, color blindness or any of those kinds of things, because those are actual disabilities, right? When it comes down to it, the pause menu, I don't think needs to be directed at a disability at all. I don't think it needs to be directed at a situational disability, or someone with one arm, or someone with an ear infection, or anything like that, right? I think that instead, the pause menu idea is something that would benefit everyone while hurting no one. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. Demon's Souls Remake never forced people to press the pause button and enter photo mode. It never did that. I was never held at gunpoint and forced to go in and take some awesome pictures. That's not how it works. The option was there if you wanted it. Now, again, I understand that someone could say, well, by that line of reasoning, why shouldn't we add an easy mode? Because the option would be there if you wanted it. And personally, that's where I think it's actually just affecting the balancing of the game. It's affecting basically the core gameplay experience of playing through the game. Whereas there is not a single moment in my playthrough of Elden Ring. I've played through the entire thing on my Let's Play channel, Degenerate Plays. If you want to see it, it's in the description down below. My channel over there. I have a whole playlist. I platinumed Dark Souls 1 Remaster, Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin, Bloodborne. I also platinumed the original Demon's Souls. I platinumed Demon's Souls Remake, and I platinumed Elden Ring. There is not a single time in any of those games that I can think of out of the 6 From Software games that I've platinumed that pausing the game would have made the game easier. If I paused the game when I'm getting attacked by an enemy, it wouldn't have made any damn difference. You know why? Because I'm still going to have to avoid that with the same timing as soon as I unpause. If I paused the game before I went into a boss chamber, that's not going to make any difference, because I could have also just left the game sitting there. It's just that now I'm not going to be attacked by enemies randomly when I'm not playing the game. The same as if I just logged off. If I were to pause the game and take a picture in a boss fight, I don't personally see how that changes the balancing of the game, because it's not going to make your reactions any easier. It's not going to let you analyze the boss. We're not talking about a rewind feature where you can let the boss hit you and then you can rewind it to say, oh, actually, I'm going to do things a different way, Life is Strange style. We're not talking about any of that. We're just talking about the ability to, instead of having to log out of the game, to just say, hey, you know what? I got to take a piss. I'll be back in a minute. That's it. I don't see how this is even a conversation. And I don't understand why it is, except for the fact that I feel like there are unfortunately a lot of gamers who have taken something as wholesome and amazing as the worlds made by From Software and Miyazaki and turned it into a measuring contest. And I find that sad, and I don't think that that's what From Software would want. I don't think that's what anyone really likes, except for these people who hold themselves to a higher standard because they beat this thing. I just don't think that that's really what anyone should want out of these games. I think that that makes it not fun to use this as a circle jerk or a measuring contest. I think instead this is supposed to be something fun. If it was asking to change the fundamental balancing, like the conversation around Elden Ring being too difficult in general, fine. I understand that there would be some frustration around that. That's not what this is at all. If you enjoyed the video, you want to leave a like, subscribe, let me know what you think down below. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I appreciate you watching. If you want to help support this channel, we do have ways to do so, like our Fortnite code, DJAY123. We do also have our own store, CosmoBunny.shop, where we take comic books, manga, and other damaged books. We save a little bit of the art, a little bit of the paper. We upcycle it and make cool resin coasters, keychains, trays, and more out of some of that stuff transformatively, making new art out of it. We recycle the rest, and my wife Jill makes awesome handmade, hand-beaded jewelry over there too. So, interested to hear your thoughts. Have a fantastic day. As always, everyone, stay shui.